Part 9. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruanmeng Baobao. Chapter 81. Suwon had already guessed it and pushed his hand back. You did the right thing. It's considered revenge for the original owner. Chi Guang was originally very nervous and was afraid of Suwon's reproach. After hearing what she said, he suddenly became happy and cursed, Sujihong is not a thing. He failed the eldest lady back then. If the old general hadn't stopped him, we would have killed him long ago. Even if he can't make the final decision on some matters related to the royal family, as long as he has the heart to protect you and rearrange a good marriage, I won't be so angry. He didn't know what he thought of, and his face darkened. Uncle Chi, I don't like the prince, nor do I like the life in the deep palace. If I live there for the rest of my life, I will suffocate. Suwon likes freedom and does not want to share a man with other women. She said solemnly, now that she is the daughter-in-law of the Gu family, there is no need to mention the past. Don't mention it, you are doing well and we are all happy. Chi Guang had been secretly watching for 2 days. Gu Huizi was very fond of Suwon, and Suwon also took good care of Gu Huizi. The couple lived a harmonious life. I felt a little relieved. You live in Qingfen Mountain, Suwon motioned Chi Guang to sit in a chair. Chi Guang sat down and said in detail, we live in the valley of Qingfen Mountain. We grow a little food and practice when we have nothing to do. We don't waste any of our skills. He rubbed his knees unnaturally. We didn't, Lord, we are not recruiting new soldiers. If you want us now, we will start recruiting from tomorrow. Okay. Suwon tapped her fingers on the table and suddenly asked, what do you think of Zhao Wei? The young hero is a fierce general. Chi Guang gave a very high evaluation. You haven't thought about taking refuge in him? Chi Guang fell into silence and said for a long time, Master, the Qi family army will always be the Qi family army and will not serve the second master. Suwon was speechless. General Qi asked them to recognize the original owner as their master. Even if the original owner did not want them, in their hearts Suwon was their master and they would never recognize anyone else as their master. There was heat in her eyes, and she took out 1,000 taels of silver notes and gave them to Chi Guang. You can improve everyone's lives, and the rest will be used to recruit new soldiers. If it's not enough, ask me again. Chi Guang held the bank note, a piece of paper that was as light as weight. His blood surged and his heart surged, and he vowed to work hard to become strong and be her strong backing. After Chi Guang left, Suwon sat quietly on the stool, thinking about how to make more money to support the Qi family army. Suwon Jing couldn't calm down, so she put aside the matter of concocting the pills to avoid making mistakes. Calculating the time, shopkeeper Zhang from Yanzi Pavilion went to Qian Pavilion to sell skincare cream, and there should be a result. Suwon came out of the backyard and saw Su Mingxiu still kneeling on the ground. She raised her eyebrows. It seemed that Su Mingxiu was determined to use her to kneel down and beg the miracle doctor to cure Sujihong to create publicity. But she forgot her identity. For a dignified princess to kneel down before a commoner is to rub the royal face on the ground. Not only the prince, but also members of the royal family will be displeased. No matter how much effort Sujihong and Qinglan put into her, she was just a petty person who couldn't stand up to the stage and had no courage at all. If an ordinary person were to disobey her orders under the guise of the crown princess, they would have been arrested on a random charge and ordered to be tied up. Suwon walked past Su Mingxiu and went to Yanzi Pavilion next door. Shopkeeper Zhang quickly closed the door and whispered, My aunt, is the one in the hospital really the princess? Do you dare to ask her to kneel down? Are you not afraid that she will separate your head from your neck? The crown princess wants to kneel down, how dare I stop her? Just blow it. Shopkeeper Zhang didn't dare to offend his god of wealth, so he mysteriously put a bag of silver in Suwon's hand. I gave 10 boxes of ruby ointment to the girls in Qian Pavilion as you said. They had never heard of this ointment, and it was given to them for free. None of them dared to ask for it. I had no choice but to stay. In Qian Pavilion, after a few days of smearing my face, my skin became whiter and moister, and then they rushed to get it. I told them at that time that I wanted to sell it to customers, but every one of them was hesitant. But when they heard about the bonus, they happily agreed and praised our ruby ointment to the sky. In just one day, the madam from Qian Pavilion placed an order for 50 boxes of ruby ointment. Suwan weighed the silver and found that there were more than a dozen taels. Shopkeeper Zhang rubbed his hands and said with a smile, "This ruby ointment is very effective, and there are some precious medicinal materials in it. I am good at making quotations." He raised 5 fingers, 500 coins a bottle. Ordinary people won't spend this money to buy ointment to put on their faces. It's better to buy an extra pound of meat to make a tooth sacrifice. Rich people don't care about these hundreds of pennies. Let's ask someone to make the box containing the ruby ointment exquisite. It makes people feel that 1 or 2 taels of silver is worth it. Suwan thought the same way at the beginning, so he developed the ruby ointment, which was very expensive, in order to make quick money. Let's make ruby ointment first. After the workshop is ready, I will get some affordable skin beautifying ointment. Suwan felt a heavy burden on her shoulders. Are there only 50 boxes in total? Shopkeeper Zhang was about to nod. Shopkeeper Zhang, we have no use for the ruby ointment you gave to our sisters. We gave it all to the guests. Chen Yuiniang was born with a beautiful face and a simple red dress on her body, which made her look gorgeous. The graceful figure walked in with every step, full of charm. The water in Chen Yuiniang's eyes flickered, and the charming look she showed was as seductive as a hook. She looked at Suwan and said with a smile, "Is this young lady the Lady Gu that Shopkeeper Zhang mentioned?" Shopkeeper Zhang winked at Chen Yuiniang, fearing that she would offend Suwan. "Ms. Gu is the big boss of Yanzi Pavilion." Chen Yuiniang smiled sweetly. "Ms. Gu is very good at her craftsmanship." She gave the ruby ointment to the guests. Fortunately, there is a boss in the cosmetics and powder business. Today is only the 3rd day, so he came to discuss business. Craftsmanship only accounts for half, and you have to sell the other half, otherwise no matter how good the product is, it will be in your hands. Suwan's words made Chen Yuiniang feel very comfortable, especially because there was no disgust in Suwan's eyes, and she did not look at her in any way. She was superior to others in front of her. Seeing that Suwan was more pleasing to her eyes, she suppressed her original idea of raising the price. "This boss is from Jiangnan and has business in various places. He asked for 5,000 boxes of ruby ointment and 450 cents a box. Do you want to sell it?" "Sell," Suwan told Chen Yuiniang, "if it's 500 cents per box for scattered customers, and if the other party wants a lot, I plan to sell it myself, for less than 50 cents per box, to give them a little profit, otherwise they will have to. If you raise the price will be messed up." Ms. Gu is a cheerful person. Chen Yuiniang cast a flirtatious look at Suwan and combed her long hair. "According to what was said before, our sisters will get 10% dividends from the ruby ointment sold." Of course Suwan stared at Chen Yuiniang's face, which was covered with thick makeup. She lightly swiped it with her fingers, and a layer of white powder was coated on her fingertips. She smelled it and found that it contained lead powder. "Next, let me develop some natural powder and give it to you as a thank you gift." Chen Yuiniang poked Suwan's chest with her finger and said coquettishly, "You little girl, do you really want to give me a thank you gift, or do you want us to be your sign?" Suwan touched her chest and begged for mercy. "This sister really gave it to you." After a pause, she added, "You want to help me sell it, so I have to thank my sisters here first." Chen Yuiniang burst into laughter and said, "It's all about your abacus." This has been said. Chen Yuiniang gave Suwan 50 taels of silver, the deposit for the big order. Suwan wrote a contract to Chen Yuiniang and sent him out. When she looked at the sky, she suddenly remembered that Gu Jingyun was about to finish the exam. Suwon rushed to Zai Academy without stopping and saw Gu Jingyun sitting on the ground dejectedly. She felt a thump in her heart. Did she fail the exam? The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Baobao. Chapter 82. Gu Jingyun huddled up into a small ball and sat at the corner of the wall next to him, his arms hugging his calves, his little face buried between his knees, only a pair of eyes showing, his eyelids drooped, looking listless. There were only a few people walking around the entrance of the academy, and it was extremely lonely. The little guy looked particularly pitiful. Suwon walked forward quickly, squatted in front of Gu Jingyun, and asked softly, "Jingyun, are you hungry? Can I take you to eat something?" Gu Jingyun snorted and turned his head to the side. Suwon held Gu Jingyun's little head and straightened it. His dark and bright eyes were half filled with tears, and his little nose was red. Suwon was stunned. Gu Jingyun broke away from Suwon's hand, raised his hand to wipe away the tears that were about to fall, and looked away from her angrily. "I'm late, Jingyun, I'm sorry, will you forgive me again?" Suwon couldn't bear to see the little guy's tears. She had never seen him cry since she walked in. Except for the stinking face at the beginning, he was all smiles later on. When she sent him to the academy before, she promised to greet him at the door, but because of business matters, she wasted time and left him here alone. "Stop crying. I was wrong. Jingyun can punish me however he wants." Gu Jingyun prides himself on being a little man who doesn't shed tears even if he bleeds. He looks down on those who love crying. "When I came out happily today, I didn't see Suwon. Everyone else was picked up by their families." He was so angry that he wanted to leave, but he was afraid that Suwon wouldn't be able to see his people, so he was anxious to look for someone everywhere. This wait lasted for nearly half an hour. Suwon coaxed her softly, and Gu Jingyun suddenly felt aggrieved. His eyes no longer looked like his, and he didn't listen to his words at all, and his tears flowed even more fiercely. "Jingyun, Yunyun, second brother." Suwon had never taken care of a child before and was a little at a loss. She took out a handkerchief to wipe his tears. "You're lying, Weavua." Gu Jingyun opened his mouth and couldn't hold back the cry. He felt so embarrassed that he pressed his mouth tightly together and buried his flushed face in his legs. Suwon sat next to him, hugged Gu Jingyun into her arms, and gently touched his head. "There are too many chores today, so I didn't pay attention to the time. How about we buy candied haws and sugar figures later? I'm not a child, so I don't want to eat candied haws and candied people." Gu Jingyun suddenly raised his head, his face was stained with tears, and his double eyelids turned into single eyelids from crying. He pursed his lips and said in a low voice, "I don't blame you." Gu Jingyun understood that his sister-in-law was busy with business and making money, but the entrance exam was a big deal, and he wanted to be the first to see her and share with her. "I feel very disappointed when I don't see anyone, and I feel a little bit over the top. We, Jingyun, are little adults now." "Second brother," Gu Jingyun corrected. Suwon lowered his eyes. The two people stared at each other. Suwon sighed, "Second brother, let's go." Gu Jingyun wiped his face with his sleeves and walked beside Suwon unhappily. Seeing the red strings of candied haws not far away, with a thin layer of sugar flakes shining in the sun, he swallowed secretly, pretending not to eat at all, and lowered his head in lack of interest. How could Suwon not know what the little guy was thinking? It's to save her money. She bought 4 bunches of candied haws and put them into Gu Jingyun's hand. "Share them with your sister." Gu Jingyun was stunned, staring blankly at the candied haws in his hand. He looked up at Suwon again, with a gentle smile on her face. His eyes started to feel hot again. He held the stick tightly, stretched out his tongue and carefully licked the candied haws. The sweet taste flooded into my heart. "Sister-in-law, eat one, it's so sweet," Gu Jingyun handed out a bunch of candied haws and said with a straight face, "I'll just eat one bunch. Too much sugar will cause tooth decay." Suwon didn't take it, but bent down to bite off the small hawthorn on the top, and said with a crooked look, "I'll just eat one and try it." Gu Jingyun pursed his lips and smiled. The two of them walked back to the hospital together. Gu Jingyun finished a bunch of candied haws, pulled Suwon's sleeve, and said with his eyebrows knotted, "Don't you ask me if I did well in the exam. Your brother said that you are good at academics and will definitely be admitted to Xi Academy." Suwon was afraid that Gu Jingyun would not perform well and break his heart, so she waited for him to say it himself. "But I said I wanted to take the first place in the exam." Gu Jingyun sighed, and said in an old-fashioned way, "I seem to have failed the exam. There are all brothers who are older than me. I didn't do a good job in the article, and it fell short of my previous level. I'm sure can't get first place in the exam." "Previous level? What was your previous level?" Suwon didn't dare to ask. She comforted, "It doesn't matter, they are much older than you and have to study for a few more years. It's understandable that you failed the exam." Gu Jingyun sighed again, "It would be so embarrassing if you don't get into the top 20. Suwon. Brother, at your age, if you get in the top 50, you can be called a child prodigy." "Su Mixu has left?" Suwon asked Gu Jingyun to play in the backyard. "Probably because he really didn't do well in the exam, the little guy has been feeling depressed." "Su Yetu, that's the crown princess. She's begging you on her knees. If you don't agree, is it really going to be okay?" Lang Zhongzhou was very worried. He was flattered that such a person appeared in the hospital. But what happened next scared him so much that he didn't even dare to show his face in the medicine hall, so he carried the medicine box to go to the doctor. He asked again, "Are she and you really sisters? If so, is Suwon's biological father the one who is sick?" Dr. Zhou thought of him unveiling the imperial title, and Suwon's aura was obviously cold, but he didn't notice anything was wrong. That's right, Suwon didn't want to appoint people from the Yuanho mansion. It was too disappointing, so she told Dr. Zhou, "If Su Mixu comes again, don't pay attention to her. Just ask her to find me." Okay, Dr. Zhou hesitated, but did not go to uncover Suwon's scars. Suwon brought up the business. "General Zhao has placed an order for 10,000 bottles of wound medicine. I can't handle it alone. You hire a few people who know medical science. I plan to find a house to open a workshop in the afternoon. I have hired 2 medicine boys, both of whom understand medicine. They will come tomorrow. Will you take a look then? If you think it is feasible, can you arrange to go to the workshop?" "No problem." After the manpower matter was settled, Suwon took Gu Jingyun to find the house. "I ran down here for most of the day and didn't see anything I liked." Suwon was very tired and took Gu Jingyun back to Xinghua village. The smoke from Gu's kitchen was curling up, and the aroma of food wafted out. Only then did Suwon realize that she was hungry. Gu Huizi placed the dishes on the table and glanced at the 2 tired people. "Wash your hands and eat." Suwon was covered in sweat. "I'll take a shower first." Gu Huizi watched her carry her clothes to the bathhouse, and looked at Gu Jingyun with a calm look. "Why did you delay going home so late?" Gu Jingyun put the candied haws in a bowl, and while washing his hands, he said, "Sister-in-law is looking for a house to make a workshop, but there is nothing that suits my liking. I may have to go there tomorrow." Gu Huizi frowned slightly and stared thoughtfully in the direction of the bathhouse. Su Mixu knelt for 2/4 of an hour, and her knees were red and swollen. Qing Huan knelt on the ground and applied medicine to Su Mixu, while telling Su Mixu about Suwon's movements. "The eldest lady is looking for a house today and wants to rent it to open a workshop. Her brother-in-law is taking the entrance exam at the academy today, and the servant spent a little time asking about it. I arrived and said I got first place in the exam." First place, Su Mixu thought carefully. Gu Jingyun is only 8 years old. She sneered, "Go and take care of it and knock him down." Yes, Jing Huan applied the medicine and immediately hurried to do this. Su Mingxiu stared at her white and smooth knees, and a purple-red bruise on them looked shocking. Her face was distorted for a moment, and she would let Su Wan know the consequences of offending her. This is just the beginning. The author has something to say. Babies, Soft Bayo has updated 4 chapters. Now go have breakfast first, and then write tomorrow's update later. Adjust the time to 12:30 p.m., okay. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Baobao. Chapter 83. 2 days passed, and the results from Xi Academy came out. Only 20 candidates will be admitted. Dean Lin arranged for people to send the 4 treasures of study and admission notices to the admitted students. This is a big event for the Gu family, and the whole family is staying at home. Gu's mother got up early in the morning, boiled water with grapefruit leaves, sprinkled the inside and outside of several broken houses to remove any bad luck, and then went to the entrance of the village to wait for news. An afternoon passed and no one came to announce the good news. Gu Jingyuan sat on the threshold of the yard, his round eyes staring at the narrow path to the village entrance, his face slumped. "I definitely didn't pass the exam." He suddenly stood up and ran to the entrance of the village to ask Gu's mother to come back for dinner. Aunt Wang saw Gu Jingyuan running forward with his head down, kicking stones and almost stumbling. "Jingyuan, where are you running? Slow down, be careful of falling." Gu Jingyuan went to Xi Academy to take the entrance exam 2 days ago. Today the academy will send someone to deliver the admission ticket. Where else can he go? Let's see if the academy has admitted him. His mother is waiting at the entrance of the village early in the morning. Gu Huizi is a young scholar. Lu Gaixiang thought that all those who crawled out of her belly were literary stars descending to earth. Where is Xi Academy? A gathering place for top-notch people from all over the world. How old is Gu Jingyuan? He doesn't even have full hair. Just expect him to transform into a dragon and ascend to heaven. There is a person in the village next door who has passed the exam for more than a dozen exams. Xi Academy has already sent the papers. In previous years, they were all delivered before noon. Unless it is far away from Xi town, it will be delayed for a while. It was noon, and a group of women who had returned from the fields were chatting away. All in all, Gu Jingyuan was out of luck. Before long, Gu Jingyuan would definitely have to fight back fiercely. "I was hit hard today, my whole body was stunned, and I consciously boasted in front of Su Wan. Not to mention the first place, I didn't even get into the 20th place, which was embarrassing and embarrassing." Song Mainjin, the younger brother of the village chief Song Manfu, said hey, showed his big yellow teeth, and preached like an elder. "Jingyuan, you are young and have many opportunities. Isn't it because you didn't pass the exam? This is just in the future, there will be entrance exams for children, scholars, and officials. If you can't bear the setback, it's better not to take the imperial examination. Your family is in a difficult situation, and you don't have to spend much money to study now. You should stop the loss in time." After hearing this, the others all shouted, "It's just that I can't read this book, there's nothing to read." Gu Jingyuan clenched his little hands into fists, with tears in his eyes. "What are you doing?" A bunch of talkative women are just gossiping. Gu's mother walked over quickly, covered in sweat, and stared at the people watching the fun with fierce eyes. Everyone who can be a grandparent has the dignity to do so. This is a joke. You are so talented, but you can't even recognize a child. I'm so embarrassed for you. Your son knows all the Chinese characters, and even Xi Academy doesn't want him. The crowd roared with laughter. Gu Jingyuan's little heart was broken into pieces. Mother Gu rolled up her sleeves and was about to hit someone. Hey, look, who's here? Aunt Wang, who had been silent all this time, saw a carriage driving towards the entrance of the village. Do you think it was the academy that sent Jingyun the admission ticket? Someone burst out laughing and said, Aunt Wang, you are so funny. The people the college arranges to send admission diplomas to are all outstanding students in the college, and everyone has a carriage. This pomp is even comparable to that of the dean. As soon as the man finished speaking, the carriage stopped. The coachman jumped out of the carriage, moved the wooden ladder, and opened the curtain. A middle-aged man wearing a white robe came out of the carriage and stood on the shaft of the carriage. The breeze blew the hem of his robe flying, and he looked quite like an immortal. Everyone was stunned, wondering about the identity of the person coming. Someone recognized it and said in disbelief, "This is the Dean of Xi Academy." Dean? What is he here for? Gu Jingyun Dean Lin stepped out of the carriage and walked up to him. You promised at first that you would be admitted to Xi Academy yourself, and then you asked the academy to beg you before you would consider going to Xi Academy. He stretched out his hand towards the book boy behind him. The scholar placed the admission sticker in the palm of Dean Lin's hand. I'm here to invite you personally. Are you willing to go to Xi Academy? Dean Lin handed the admission ticket to Gu Jingyun. Gu Jingyun felt that he must be the reincarnation of a crybaby, otherwise why would he have the urge to cry when Dean Lin said a word? He puffed up his cheeks and raised his chin. How many names should I take? Dean Lin saw that he was aggrieved before, but now he looks arrogant. If you know your ranking, what's the point? Just average. As soon as Dean Lin said these words, Gu Jingyun's eyebrows drooped down, and his face wrinkled, like the word. He couldn't help but laugh and said, it's just the first place. First place. One stone stirs up 1,000 waves. Everyone was stunned by this explosive news. Just Gu Jingyun? First place? The face of the person who laughed at Gu Jingyun hurt terribly. No one questioned the dean's words. Gu Jingyun, on the other hand, wondered, did I really get the first place in the exam? Everyone said that I am not a good candidate for studying. Mr. Dean, are you mistaken? If you are not a young scholar, who would dare to say that you are? Dean Lin said firmly, learning depends on talent, and it is not something you can do with age. Your first place is well deserved. The article has been posted on the top of the list. On the wall, if you are not convinced, you can go and appreciate it. You are the first one. You don't have to pay any tuition fees when you go to Xi Academy. You will be given a monetary subsidy every month. Dean Lin took out a money bag from his sleeve and put it in Gu Jingyun's hand. The first place has 10 taels. As a silver reward, if you are the youngest, I will reward you with an extra 10 taels of silver to encourage other students to be diligent and studious. 2. 20 taels. Oh my God. Gu Jingyun's eyes went straight. He can buy new clothes for his mother, a silver hairpin for his sister-in-law, and a beautiful little skirt for his sister. The 20 taels of silver were arranged clearly as if there were barrages in his little mind. Gu's mother's fingers were trembling with excitement, and she said cautiously, Dean, would you like to go inside and have a cup of tea? Dean Lin motioned for her to clear the way. Mother Gu felt like she was stepping on cotton, her legs shaking. The neighbors were so jealous that their eyes were red. You don't have to pay to study and you can still make money. Gu Jingyun raised his head and held his chest high, majestic and high-spirited, and returned home amidst the envious eyes of everyone. Sister-in-law. Sister-in-law, Gu Jingyun ran home, his eyebrows almost flying. I got first place in the exam. I didn't embarrass you. Suwan just finished cooking the food and brought it out, placed it on the table, and praised, our second brother is the most powerful. That's not true. I'm better than my eldest brother. Gu Jingyun raised his chin and said with great pride, I was also rewarded with 20 taels of silver. He gave the money bag to Suwan. Suwan held the money bag in her hands, I have to save it carefully. When my second brother grows up, he will use it to marry his wife. Gu Jingyun's face turned red with embarrassment. Gu Beizu leaned her head closer. Gu Jingyun tugged on Gu Beizu's braid, held it in for a long time, and finally said, I don't want to marry a wife, she is just as troublesome as Gu Beizu. Gu Beizu said ouch, covered his scalp, and chased Gu Jingyun, you are so annoying. You are not as tall as me. Girls will not marry a dwarf. The two men chased and fought into the yard. The two kids at home are too wild and they make a lot of noise all day long. Mother Gu poured a bowl of tea for Dean Lin, rubbed her hands and said, the family just has simple food. Dean Lin said with a smile, it's better to keep it simple, it tastes like home. He picked up a bowl of tea, took a sip, and said to Suwon, there have been activities in the past 2 days and they want to remove Gu Jingyun's ranking. I'll check after a while, the person behind it is your stepsister. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Baobao. Chapter 84. Suwon felt that it was expected. Su Mixu regarded her as a thorn in his side, how could he see her getting better and better? Su Mixu will definitely take revenge for the humiliation of kneeling before. Suwon's eyes flashed with sharpness. Su Mixu could come to her if anything happened, but she should never touch Gu's family. The dean has great moral integrity and strong character. He never succumbs to power, which makes me admire him deeply. Suwon flattered him and served Dean Lin some tea. Her smile was less distant and more distant. Sincerely, you are Huizi's senior brother, so I won't be polite to you and treat you to a home-cooked meal. Mother Gu was secretly shocked. Dean Lin was actually Gu Huizi's senior brother? Her seniority suddenly rose. Mother Gu's hands stopped shaking, her legs stopped feeling weak, and her heart stopped panicking. She looked at Dean Lin, who was several years older than her, with a look of kindness on her face as she looked towards a junior. Yes, yes, we are one of our own, stay and finish eating before leaving. Mother Gu quickly went to the kitchen to prepare a pair of clean dishes and chopsticks for Dean Lin. Dean Lin had a kind face. He looked at a few home-cooked dishes, which were all delicious and delicious. He smiled heartily and said, Junior brother said that you are an excellent cook and you cook at Zwick Anglu. I have long wanted to come and taste your craftsmanship. Today, I specially sent Jingyun an admission ticket to fulfill my wish. Suwon knew that these were polite words. Dean Lin mainly told her that Su Mixu was making moves behind her back, and asked her to be careful about Su Mixu. I'll ask Huizi to come back and have dinner with you. Suwon walked out of the hall and saw Gu Huizi coming back with a basket containing a handful of green and tender shepherd's purses. Hey, these shepherd's purses are very fresh, where did you pick them? Gu Huizi, by the river. Oh, you picked it back now. Mother Gu came out of the house and smiled from ear to ear when she saw the shepherd's purse. She said to Suwon, I asked you to eat shepherd's purse dumplings last night. Pick specially for her? Suwon turned her head and looked at Gu Huizi. The man's expression was calm, not at all uncomfortable. She curled her lips and took the basket from Gu Huizi's hand. Your senior brother is here for dinner. I won't make dumplings today. I'll make a cold dish. Suwon went to the kitchen and quickly washed the shepherd's purse, blanched it in water, squeezed out the water and cut it into sections, crushed the garlic, added sesame oil, soy sauce, salt, red pepper and other seasonings and mixed well. The green shepherd's purse is garnished with white garlic paste and a little red pepper. The color is very attractive. Suwon brought it to the table. Shepherd's purse has the effect of harmonizing the spleen and stomach and improving eyesight. Try it. Dean Lin looked at a plate of simple wild vegetables. After passing through Suwon's hands, it became particularly tempting. He took a chopstick and put the shepherd's purse into his mouth. After swallowing it, a faint fragrance of the mountains lingered on his lips and teeth. Between. A little bit of spiciness plays a role in seasoning it and whetting your appetite. Your cooking skills are really good. I was not used to eating wild vegetables, but I can eat all the dishes you made. Dean Lin is an honest person and ate half of the plate of shepherd's purse. Don't eat this dish, eat something else. Suwon pushed a bowl of mapo tofu in front of Dean Lin. This is also my specialty. Dean Lin took a quick look and saw that the porcelain white bowl contained fresh and tender tofu, surrounded by red oil and green garlic segments embedded in it. It looked so tempting. He took a piece of it with a porcelain spoon and put it in a bowl to take a bite. The tofu was tender and smooth in the mouth, the diced pork was fragrant and crispy, the numbness was not sour at all, the spiciness was not dry, and the aroma of watercress was very prominent. Unconsciously, after eating a few pieces of tofu, the spicy and delicious smell still lingers in my mouth. Dean Lin's eyes suddenly lit up. Suwon didn't need to recommend this time. He tasted boiled fish fillets and chicken stewed with mushrooms, which made people want to grow two bellies in order to stuff all the dishes on the table. After having enough wine and food, Dean Lin put down his chopsticks. His mood became particularly good. If you need any help, just ask your senior brother. You're welcome. Looking at the sky, Dean Lin stood up and said, "There are still some things to deal with in the academy, I'll leave first." Gu Huizi and Suwon sent Dean Lin out together. Dean Lin said to Gu Huizi, "You stay, I have something to say to my sister-in-law." Gu Huizi frowned, but did not send any more, and helped to clean up the dishes together. Suwon walked out of the courtyard with Dean Lin. "Sister-in-law, junior brother is stubborn. He has an unresolved conflict with the old man. The old man misses him deeply and cannot show his face to see him. I see that junior brother is very fond of you. Please try to persuade him more when nothing happens." Lin Yu and I always felt like I was worried. Back then, he discovered that Gu Huizi was a good young man and invited him to Zai Academy. It happened that the old man came to Zai Academy from the capital and directly intercepted him and took Gu Huizi as a close disciple. Although Gu Huizi was extremely talented and brilliant, he was very perverse and decisive in killing. Not only is he cruel to others, but he is also cruel to himself. The old gentleman was worried that he would go astray, so he was very strict with Gu Huizi. He actually respected his teacher very much, but his political views were contrary to the old gentleman. Later, for unknown reasons, he was expelled from the school by the old gentleman. During the New Year and birthdays, Gu Huizi would still give gifts, but no longer visit. The old gentleman said that out of sight, out of mind, there would always be an empty chair next to him when we got together. "Sister-in-law, the old man's birthday will be in a few days. You must bring your junior brother to attend." Dean Lin entrusted him with an important task. Suwon felt that Dean Lin thought too highly of her. Gu Huizi had only given her a good look recently, but Dean Lin couldn't persuade him. How could she possibly do so? Just because two people sleep in the same bed? "I'll give it a try." Suwon couldn't refuse easily, and she said ugly things beforehand. "Don't have your hopes up, he won't listen to me." Dean Lin gave her a meaningful look. "Just try. It doesn't work. I've been studying for so many years in vain." Suwon was frightened by Dean Lin's last look. She watched Dean Lin leave. She went back to the house and found Gu Huizi in the kitchen, where he was washing dishes. Suwon rolled up her sleeves and stood side by side with him, and the two of them washed the dishes together. She pondered for a while and coughed lightly. "Gu Huizi, the old gentleman is not in good health. I will go to him for a follow-up visit in a few days. Will you go with me?" Gu Huizi lowered his eyes and stared at the hands of the two people that occasionally touched each other, his thoughts wandering a little. "It's the old gentleman's birthday in a few days. You don't need to think too much to know what the senior brother said to Suwon. The emperor is still alive, and the old gentleman has always disapproved of the regent's rule. For this reason, he withdrew from the cabinet and resigned from the position of chief assistant. However, he unexpectedly became the adopted son of the regent and joined the regent's party. The old gentleman expelled him from the school for this reason. Gu Huizi looked out the window. Gu Beizu was squatting on the ground. Gu Jingyuan frowned and tied her hair with a grimace. I didn't tie it properly several times and I was so anxious that I scratched my head. Gu Beizu pulled Gu Jingyuan's sleeve, and the two of them squatted together, with their heads touching each other. She grabbed a handful of hair and taught Gu Jingyuan how to tie it up. Gu Jingyuan tried again with a focused expression, and successfully tied up his hair, turning the good braid into a sky-high braid. He froze for a moment, then grinned. Gu Huizi looked at the two smiling faces that were warmer than the morning sun, wishing they could stay so carefree all their lives. Suwan saw that Gu Huizi had been silent and thought he would not agree. Gu Huizi whispered, "I'll take you there." "Gu Huizi, you are so kind," Suwan smiled brightly at him. Gu Huizi stared at her smiling face, his bright eyes seemed to be filled with starlight, astonishingly bright. His calm eyes darkened, he turned away and continued washing the dishes. Suwan finished one thing, and her heart dropped. She ran directly to the town to find Su Mingxiu to settle the score. The author has something to say. Ouch, I originally wanted to update 2 chapters at the same time, but this chapter was very difficult to write, so I finished it so late. Good night, my dears, see you tomorrow, okay? Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruanmeng Baobao. Chapter 85. Su Mingxiu is the crown princess, and she came to Zai town secretly. After her identity was exposed in Xinghua village, there was an endless stream of people visiting her. She lives in a house prepared by a wealthy gentry. Carved beams and painted buildings, pavilions, rock eyries, and trees create a scene at every step. The house is very quiet, but not wealthy. In the main courtyard where Su Mingxiu lives, there is a duobao pavilion, which is full of antique jades. She was sitting next to her desk. On the table were various famous people's dharma stickers, several expensive inkstones, and pen holders all carved from jade. Next to the window, there was a milky white Ryukil vase with a few delicate peonies inserted in it, which made her beautiful face look beautiful. Qing Huan hurried in and was stunned for a moment when she saw this painting-like scene. She thought of something important and quickly broke this quiet and beautiful scene. "Princess, Gu Jingyuan's rank has not been removed. Dean Lin of Zai Academy personally sent him to Xinghua village to reward him with 20 taels of silver. I have inquired about it, and there was no such thing as rewarding him with 20 taels of silver in previous years." Qing Huan said angrily, "Dean Lin deliberately slapped you in the face. This matter cannot be let go like this. If word spreads, even a mere teacher can lose your face. How can you deter others?" Su Mingxiu's expression suddenly changed. "Does he know my identity?" Seeing that Su Mingxiu looked wrong, Qing Huan panicked and said quickly, "The slave sent a message to someone. That person can't handle things. It's your intention to reveal it? Zai Academy has promised well and will definitely remove Gu Jingyuan. Come down, who knows, they will go back on their word." Su Mingxiu suddenly picked up an inkstone and threw it at Qing Huan. "Ah!" Qing Huan covered her forehead, blood dripped from her palms, and tears rolled down from the pain. "It's not enough to succeed, but it's easy to ruin. You leaked this palace to let everyone know that the majestic crown princess of Zhou knelt down in Zai town and asked others to replace others. Are you trying to kill her?" My wife, Su Mingxiu, was going crazy, her brain was throbbing with pain. She held her forehead and gritted her teeth and said, "Do you know who Dean Lin is?" As the former chief assistant, the emperor arranged for him to be cultivated in the Hanlin Academy, and he would join the cabinet and become the chief assistant in the future. However, he was a very upright person and did not covet fame, wealth, and power. His only ambition was to teach and educate people, so the emperor assigned him to teach at Zai Academy. Such a person has a strong character and is not afraid of power. You let others do something, and you alarmed him. The more Su Mingxiu said, the more angry she wanted to vomit blood, and she pressed her aching heart. You won't go to the county magistrate, just directly put pressure on the person in charge of marking papers to replace Gu Jingyun's papers. Qing Huan's face turned pale, and she knelt down on the ground, kowtowing and saying, Princess, calm down, I'm not doing my job well, please spare me this time. Su Mingxiu was afraid that Dean Lin would write this matter into a memorial and submit it to the palace. Although the regent will try his best to protect her, he will give her a bad reputation. Especially the prince will hate her even more, right? Every time she faced Su Wan, it was difficult for her to stay rational. Su Mingxiu felt regretful every time she thought about the last time she knelt down. The crown princess, the former chief assistant, is in Zai town and lives in the Lin mansion. Qing Huan dismissed the merit and told Su Mingxiu the information she found. He has a relationship with the Dingyuan Marquis mansion. You can go and visit. This matter was wiped out. Su Mingxiu's heart moved. Seeing that Su Mingxiu was thinking, Qing Huan bit her lip and said, This slave thinks that you are the crown princess of a country, the future queen, and that you have a distinguished status. In the entire Great Zhou Kingdom, except for members of the royal family, all the other subjects are shocked when they see you. You must be polite. If the eldest lady treats you like that, you can justly accuse her of contempt for the emperor and kill her. Why doesn't Su Mingxiu want to do this? Once she does this, the prince will not be able to spare her. So she compromised and let the prince know that Su Wan had a very unruly personality. Su Wan's bullying of her was a slap in the face of the prince and the royal family. As the saying goes, when beating a dog, it depends on the owner. I have to think about it again. Su Mingxiu took her mother's route, but this route was obviously not feasible with Su Wan. She suddenly made up her mind and walked towards the inner room. I am going to visit the former chief minister. You go and prepare a gift. Yes. Qing Huan stood up and left in a hurry, ordering people to prepare the carriage and prepare generous gifts. Su Mingxiu changed her clothes and came out of the clean room. A hand locked around her throat and threw her against the wall. Su Mingxiu saw clearly that the person holding her throat was Su Wan. She couldn't breathe smoothly and grabbed Su Wan's hand in pain, with fear in her eyes. Su Mingxiu, you provoke me everywhere. Do you think I dare not do anything to you? Su Wan's face was filled with frost and she tightened her fingers. Su Mingxiu's neck felt like it was about to be strangled. She wanted to say something, but there was only a whooshing sound in her throat. The air in her chest was evacuated. The fear of dying came over her. She struggled desperately and couldn't get away. Su Wan's shackles. I'll break your neck, and everything you've gained will be wasted. Su Wan saw her face gradually becoming panicked, her eyes pleading, and she said coldly, the things I threw away. I won't pick it up again. I will chop off the hands of anyone who dares to grab my things. You should never attack my people. I am here to give you dirty hands. A lesson for next time. Su Wan's eyes glared fiercely, and she threw Su Mingxiu to the ground. I won't spare you. Su Mingxiu lay on the ground, coughing heartbreakingly, like a fish out of water, desperately opening her mouth to breathe. When she recovered, she opened her mouth to call someone. Su Wan pinched her chin, poured a packet of medicinal powder into her mouth, picked up the teapot and poured water into her mouth. Su Mingxiu's pupils shrank and she struggled desperately. Su Wan lifted her chin and swallowed the powdered water in her mouth. Su Wan threw away the kettle and clapped her hands. Don't even think about asking people to arrest me or make me unhappy. If you don't get the antidote, you're going to have your intestines broken. Su Mingxiu picked her throat, trying to spit out the swallowed powder. He retched for a long time and only spit out a little water. Su Mingxiu's eyes were red and she glared at Su Wan with hatred. wanting to fight Suwon at all costs. But Suwon's life was not worth her efforts. "Suwon, I am the crown princess. Aren't you afraid that I will chop off your head?" Sumixu wanted to crush Suwon to ashes. "With you by my side on the Huangquan road, I won't be lonely." Suwon looked fearless. Sumixu wanted to tear Suwon's face apart. Suwon glanced at Sumixu, who dared to be angry but dared not do anything, and sneered coldly. "Those who are soft are afraid of being hard, and those who are hard are afraid of losing their lives." Sumixu was afraid of death, so Suwon didn't take her seriously. She was about to return to where she was when a servant's greeting came from outside the house: "Your Highness the Crown Prince. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruanmeng Baobao. Chapter 86. Suwon was stunned. "The prince is here?" She wanted to jump out of the window. Sumixu didn't know where she got the strength to hold Suwon's legs tightly with both hands. Your Highness, help me!" Sumixu shouted in panic. She didn't know why the prince suddenly came to Zitown. But coming to this juncture is a good thing for her. Break and then stand. If the prince sees through Suwon's true face, he will definitely dislike her. With a click, Suwon clasped Sumixu's shoulders with her 5 fingers and removed her arm. "Ah!" Sumixu screamed. Suwon broke free from Sumixu's hand, stepped on the couch and was about to jump out of the window. 2 guards suddenly appeared outside the window. Suwon raised her hand, and bang dong, the guard fell straight down. She jumped down, climbed up the wall and climbed out of the house. More than a dozen guards wanted to chase him. "Stop!" The prince stood in front of the window, looking at Suwon's slender figure quickly disappearing against the wall, a dark look flashing in his deep eyes. Yu Hung said, "There is no need to chase after him." "Your Highness." The guard was about to say something, but when he caught Prince Sunyan's gaze, he immediately fell silent. Sumixu's eyes were ferocious. The prince saw her embarrassed appearance after being bullied, and even saw Suwon pouring the medicine on the ground while the guard was on the ground. He actually let Suwon go without pursuing the matter. Jealousy and anger burned her insides. Sumixu wanted to ask the prince why he let Suwon go. "Your Highness, when I came to Xinghua village this time, I met my sister and wanted to take her back to the capital. She asked me to give her 1,000 taels of silver. Seeing that her life was poor, I gave her 1,000 taels, and she said that she would. It's so disrespectful to say that you sold me 1,000 taels of silver. She broke into the house today, fed me poison, and took off one of my arms." Sumixu's slender body stood up unsteadily, tears rolling down silently, like a small white flower that had been damaged by the storm, which was pitiful. With tears streaming down her face, she said pitifully, "Your Highness, I don't know why my sister treats me like this. We were obviously very good sisters before. I don't know. Isn't this what your Marquis requested?" The prince stood in the shadows, his face was sharp and angular, his facial features were 3-dimensional and deep, noble and handsome. At this moment, he was covered with a layer of ice, and his eyes were piercing towards her, making her feel cold. Feeling like quitting, Sumixu wanted to leave. The prince walked slowly over, his dark purple robe dragging across the ground, and his wide sleeves embroidered with complex dark patterns flowing with a faint dark light. He stopped in front of Sumixu and stretched out a few fingers to pinch her slender neck, which happened to overlap with the fingerprints left by Suwon. A chill shot up from the soles of Sumixu's feet, and the prince leaned forward slightly. "Sumixu, even if she poisons you, aren't you the one who brought it upon yourself?" The prince's deep and textured voice sounded in her ears, like a whisper between lovers, and Sumixu shivered all over. She stiffened her neck and dared not move. She was afraid that the prince would break her neck. Be your crown princess and don't take Suwon's ideas. The crown prince pushed Su Mingxiu away mercilessly, took out a handkerchief from his sleeve and wiped the hands that had touched Su Mingxiu. Su Mingxiu stumbled and fell to the ground. She groaned in pain. The pain in her body was not as painful as her heart, as if a piece of her body had been gouged out with a sharp knife. She lay motionless on the ground, tears falling in strings. The prince left from the inner room without even looking at her. Qing Huan came in immediately and saw Su Mingxiu lying on the ground. She hurriedly came over to help him up. "Princess, please don't cry. Sooner or later, the prince will know that you are the only one who is sincere to him." Su Mingxiu felt extremely uncomfortable. The piece of handkerchief abandoned by the prince on the ground was just like her sincerity abandoned by the prince. "What should I do? What can I do?" Su Mingxiu's words stopped suddenly, and her body itched, as if there were insects and ants crawling on her body. It was itchy and painful. She couldn't help but scratch it with her left hand. The more she scratched, the more it itched. The harder I scratched, and a few blood marks suddenly appeared on the white and tender skin. It itches so much." Qing Huan was startled when she saw the skin Su Mingxiu scratched was bleeding. She fell down and rolled on the bed, pressing her dislocated hand, and cried out in pain. After a while, she scratched her face to pieces. Crown Princess, we can't catch you, you can't catch us." Qing Huan rushed over and held Su Mingxiu down, shouting outside, someone is coming quickly." The palace maid walked in quickly. "What happened?" Qing Huan almost couldn't hold Su Mingxiu down anymore and shouted anxiously, "Hurry and tie the crown princess's hands." The palace maid was startled. How dare she offend Su Mingxiu? "Go quickly. If something happens, I'll take care of it alone," Qing Huan said urgently. The palace maid then took a ribbon and tied Su Mingxiu's hands. "Go and invite the doctor quickly." Seeing that Su Mingxiu couldn't get away, Qing Huan exhaled a breath. "Go and invite the doctor quickly." The palace maid immediately went to invite the doctor. The doctor could hear Su Mingxiu's painful cries from afar. When he walked into the inner room, he saw her squirming on the bed. The doctor didn't dare to let out any anger. He walked to the bedside cautiously and saw clearly the condition on Su Mingxiu's face. He took a step back in horror. That face was covered with large red rashes, like pock marks. There was no good spot, even the whole body. The skin was scratched and his face was covered with blood, which looked shocking. "Mother, please take a look and see what's going on," Qing Huan urged. The doctor swallowed his saliva and asked with difficulty, "Tell me about the previous situation." "Suddenly, my body became itchy. When the princess scratched her, rashes all appeared." Qing Huan asked worriedly, "After the injury is healed, will there be scars on my face?" The doctor didn't reply and untied Su Mingxiu. Her hands scratched her skin desperately, and her neck was suddenly bloody. "It's itchy, I'm so itchy, it's almost killing me." Su Mingxiu couldn't stand the painful itch. No matter how hard she scratched, she couldn't scratch the itch. She rolled around in pain and wanted to die. "Princess," Qing Huan and the palace maid held her down and shouted to the doctor, "Quickly take your pulse and check what's going on." Su Mingxiu couldn't move and screamed, "Let me go. Let me go quickly." The doctor felt Su Mingxiu's pulse with trembling fingers and checked again. His face became strange. "The crown princess is fine. She may have eaten something she shouldn't have eaten and developed a rash. Wait until the rash is gone, it won't itch anymore." Qing Huan saw Su Mingxiu being tortured into a human shape. Her eyes were red, and she choked with sobs. "Is there any cure?" "I don't have good medical skills, so I can't cure her," the doctor said solemnly. "If you keep scratching like this, scars will be left on the skin. I suggest that the princess be tied up until the symptoms are relieved." Su Mingxiu's face was distorted and she screamed, "Quack doctor! Quack doctor! Someone, Sink this quack doctor into the pond. This crazy look shows no trace of the grace that a princess should have. Lang Zhong was so frightened that he turned pale and fell to his knees on the ground. Princess, spare your life, spare this villain's life. Qing Huan asked people to drag the doctor down. Suwan. This bitch did it, Su Mingxiu bit her lip and said bitterly, catch her. The author has something to say. The details have been slightly revised. Good night, my dears. See you tomorrow, okay. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Baobao. Chapter 87. There were only two people in the room, Qing Huan and the palace maid. The palace maid was frightened a lot when she saw such a hysterical Su Mingxiu. In her memory, Su Mingxiu had always been gentle and kind, and her tone of voice had never been harsher. Today, she would kill the doctor and her stepsister at every turn. The palace maid looked at Qing Huan tremblingly. Qing Huan winked at her and told her to step back. As soon as the maid left the room, Qing Huan hugged the struggling Su Mingxiu and said, Princess, you can't say such angry words anymore. If the prince knows, he will only become more and more alienated from you. Su Mingxiu had a glimmer of hope for the prince before, but at this moment, she had had enough. I was confused before. I saw my mother was gentle and virtuous, and she obeyed my father in everything, so I caught my father in my hand. As long as I am gentle and careful, the prince will like me one day. But everything that happened today gave me a blow. Suwan fed me poison, removed my arm, and poisoned the guard, but the prince still indulged her. I understood one thing. Suwan is the prince's sweetheart. Even if she is unruly and willful, in his eyes the prince is very nice and will even deal with the consequences for her. Even if I didn't do anything wrong, marrying him would be an unforgivable mistake. So why does she have to compromise? The person who asked Suwan to be arrested just now was something she had always wanted to do, but she did not dare to use her status as the crown princess to do it. He could only secretly plot to make Suwan die an unexpected death. As long as Suwan lives, the prince will not see her. Su Mingxiu's red eyes were filled with murderous intent. She won't tolerate it anymore. So what if the prince likes Suwan? In order to consolidate the position of the crown prince, didn't the prince marry her? It's okay to hate her, it's okay to hate her. As long as she, Su Mingxiu, has power, what if the prince knows that she killed Suwan? He will be tied to her for the rest of his life. Even if they die, they must be buried together. She can no longer win the prince's love with her weakness, she must become strong, so strong that the prince can no longer ignore her. Su Mingxiu gritted her teeth tightly. As the unbearable itching increased sharply, her hatred for Suwan reached its peak. From now on, she and Suwan will fight to the death. Qing Huan couldn't help but feel her heart tremble when she saw the astonishing dark fire in Su Mingxiu's eyes, knowing that the crown princess had changed. The prince was sitting in the carriage, leaning against the wall of the carriage, with a layer of tiredness on his handsome face. He was not the queen's biological child. The queen had 2 miscarriages and finally gave birth to the emperor's eldest son. He was very talented, but in the end he died of illness. His biological mother, Xiao Myron, gave him to the queen to raise. That night, his mother-in-law committed suicide by hanging from the beam. The queen poured her heart and soul into him and raised him as a prince. When he was 8 years old, Mrs. Ding Yuanho carried the infant Suwan into the palace. The queen put Suwan in his arms and asked bluntly, Feng do you want to be the crown prince? Ji Wuifeng was stunned. The queen smiled gently, if you want to be a prince, you must marry her when you grow up. Ji Wuifeng looked at Suwan in her arms. She spat out saliva bubbles and grinned at him, revealing 2 smooth, pink gums. This smile reflected in the heart of little Ji Wuifeng. 2 people made an engagement. 7 or 8 years later, the queen became pregnant again, and the imperial doctor diagnosed the baby as a boy. Ji Wuifeng felt a sense of crisis and began to secretly deploy his own forces to stabilize his position as crown prince. Even though the queen gave birth to a stillborn fetus, Ji Wuifeng was alienated from the queen, especially when General Qi died of illness and the Qi family army disappeared. Ji Wuifeng was busy dealing with the regent and became more and more alienated from the queen. Until one day the regent asked him to make a choice: you choose the same as the throne or Suwan. Ji Wuifeng chose the throne. Soon after, the father declared to all the ministers that Su Mingxiu was born with a precious destiny. If she were to be the crown prince, she would make the country of Great Zhou prosperous. The regent created an auspicious omen and used thunderous means to suppress those who opposed the matter. Ji Wuifeng has treated Suwan as his wife since he was a child, and Suwan does the same. She often follows him like a little tail. When she can cook and sew, she will personally make snacks every few days and send them to him. His underwear, stockings, sachet, and handkerchief were all sewn by her stitch by stitch. It was a foregone conclusion that he would marry Su Mingxiu, and Ji Wuifeng could not relieve his depression. When he came to the queen's palace, his aunt said, "Your Highness, the queen has gone to bed. You should go back and rest early." Ji Wuifeng suddenly came to his senses and realized that in the past few years, he and the queen had become increasingly estranged, and they only maintained a superficial relationship between mother and son. If it were in the past, even if the queen really went to bed, she would put on her clothes and get up to see him when she heard that he was coming. Now he has nothing but the position of prince. The regent supported him as if he were cultivating a puppet. Ji Wuifeng raised his hand and pinched his brow bone, Suwan's strong figure lingering in his mind. It reminded him of when he was punished. Suwan sneaked in through the window and gave him snacks. The snack was wrapped in a handkerchief, and when she climbed through the window, it was crushed and crushed. But it was the most delicious snack he had ever eaten. That time was also his most worry-free time. Never again. "Your Highness, where are you going?" the chamberlain asked cautiously. The prince uttered two words: "In." The carriage moved slowly. After a long time, a hoarse voice came out: "Go to Xinghua village." After Suwan finished her work, she went directly back to Xinghua village. Su Mingxiu stole the man from her original owner and targeted her at every turn. Suwan taught her a lesson, ruining Su Mingxiu's face and making her despised by the prince. When the prince ascends the throne in the future, she may not be able to be the mother of the world. In history, many crown princes did not become queens after they ascended the throne. Now that the prince is here, Suwan touched her chin, a sly look in her eyes. Su Mingxiu loves to rob other people's men so much, so find something for her to do. Let Su Mingxiu taste what it feels like to have a man robbed by others, and there is no time to provoke her. Suwan moved her nose and smelled the fragrance of wild vegetables, mixed with a bit of meat. Suwan followed the scent and walked into the kitchen. She saw Gu Huizi standing at the square table in the middle, his sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing his smooth forearms. He was making dumplings and mixing two kinds of fillings, shepherd's purse meat filling and vegetarian 3. Fresh. "Gu Huizi, did you make all the dumplings for this table?" Suwan washed her hands, picked up a round and cute dumpling, and said with bright eyes, "Is there anything else you can't do?" Gu Huizi pinched the dumpling, and a small, round dumpling took shape and was placed in the dustpan. His tone was calm: "You can't think of it?" Suwan blushed, feeling like she was being teased. "I want to eat steamed dumplings." "Why don't you steam them?" Suwan picked up the dough and made dumplings. Gu Huizi glanced at her, boiled water in a pot, and steamed dumplings for her. Gu's mother came back from outside and muttered, "There is a richly dressed man standing outside the door. He is about the same age as Huizi. Wan, are you here to see a doctor?" Looking for me, Suwan came out of the kitchen in confusion, opened the courtyard door, and saw a man standing not far away. She strangely recognized it, the prince. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Bao. Chapter 88. The prince was dressed in purple, his hair tied with a jade crown, his eyebrows were like ink, and he stared at Suwan with piercing eyes. She has a slim figure, her hair is casually pulled up with a wooden hairpin, and she wears a simple cloth skirt to give her a charming daughter's style. Except for the same eyebrows and eyes, the temperament radiating from the inside out seemed to be that of a completely different person. The prince touched her strange look, tightened his fingers in his sleeves, and his eyes fell on the dumplings shaped in her hands, pinching out beautiful lace. She has very high requirements for the food she makes. It must not only be beautiful in appearance, but also taste good in the mouth. Only when she is satisfied will it be sent to the palace. The queen and Mrs. Ding Yuanho were close friends. In order to cultivate their relationship, Suwan was allowed to enter and exit the palace freely. She said, "Brother Feng, I only wash my hands and make soup for you. If it doesn't taste good, you have to tell me. I will make it a few more times and it will taste delicious." Now she washes hands and makes soup for others. The prince's Adam's apple slid slightly, as if he had eaten Coptus chinensis soup, which made him feel bitter in his heart. "Awan," he whispered. Suwan frowned. The original protagonist didn't have many roles in the book. It was about the love and hatred between the prince and Su Mingxiu, from the initial fight to the last love, and finally they joined hands to become the emperor and empress. The love between husband and wife. Deep, it became a good story in the Zhou dynasty. The original owner died and was the prince's white moonlight. After the prince fell in love with Su Mingxiu, he became the white rice at the corner of his mouth. "Awan, are you okay?" The prince walked up to Suwan, his eyes concerned. "You don't want to stay here, I." "Shut up. If you really have this intention, you should have arranged my path as early as when you chose the position of crown prince. Now that I marry Gu Huizi, I am his. If I don't stay here, where are you going?" Suwan didn't want to see the prince at all, especially with a bitter expression. "You chose me for the throne of the prince, and now that you have made the choice, you can no longer do it. Turn around and say something inappropriate. Let's go. Take your wife and go. Don't disturb my purity." Suwan felt so miserable. She was so busy that she couldn't even make any money, so she had to spare her time to deal with the couple. "Wouldn't it be nice to have a plate of Gu Huizi's steamed dumplings if you have some free time? You really care about our past friendship. Don't bother me, don't cause me any trouble. Everyone be well." Suwan was thinking about the dumplings, so she didn't want to waste any more words and closed the door. The prince stood against the door and saw Suwan's impatient expression. He really thought he was an eyesore. His throat was dry and he said, "Awan, you owe me a sachet." Suwan glared at the prince. "You said you would give me a sachet during the Dragon Boat Festival." The prince's dark eyes were dim, and he twitched the corners of his lips. "I haven't given it yet. We used to be an unmarried couple, and it was reasonable for me to make needlework for you. We have no relationship at all now, and you ask me for a sachet." Suwan sneered, "Where do you get such a big face?" Bang! Suwan slammed the door hard. "Turn around and kick away the gravel." The gravel rolled up to the edge of a pair of cloth shoes. Suwan looked up and saw Gu Huizi standing not far away, with long eyebrows and slitted eyes, looking at her calmly. There is a chill among the falling snow and green pines, and the harmonious atmosphere before has disappeared. Her heart tightened and she felt an inexplicable feeling of guilt. She asked dryly, "Gu Huizi, are the dumplings steamed?" She blinked her eyes and touched her stomach with her flour-stained hands. "I'm so hungry." "It's steamed." Gu Huizi pressed the corners of his lips slightly. "I'll eat it." He looked like he was in a bad mood, and she didn't dare to provoke him. Oh, Suwan tapped her toes on the ground and pursed her lips. "I'll steam it myself." Gu Huizi turned around and entered the house without looking at her. He recognized the person as the prince. When the prince asked Suwan for the sachet, Gu Huizi just remembered that the prince's regular clothes, underwear, socks, shoes, handkerchiefs, and other items were all sewn by Suwan himself. He even hired various chefs to learn cooking skills for the prince. Gu Huizi thought that Suwan's excellent cooking skills were all developed for other men, and he wanted to throw away all the dumplings on the table and not let her eat them. At this moment, Gu Huizi had long forgotten that he had guessed that Suwan had changed someone. Reason is all messed up. Bang. Gu Huizi slammed the door. Suwan stared at the closed door inexplicably. After eating her dumplings, I still had the nerve to be angry. Suwan hummed softly and walked into the main room. On the table were 2 plates of steamed dumplings, even with thoughtful sauces. Mother Gu said with a smile, Wan, Huizi has steamed a plate of vegetarian dishes and a plate of shepherd's purse dumplings. You can try them both. I like to eat them all. As long as they are dumplings, I like any kind of filling. Suwan smiled instantly, stuffing a shepherd's purse dumpling into her mouth, biting into the dough, and the delicious aroma filled her lips and teeth, making her gasp and swallow. After swallowing it, he raised his eyebrows with satisfaction. The shepherd's purse and meat dumplings are delicious, you can eat one too. Suwan picked it up and stuffed it into Mother Gu's mouth. Gu's mother was stunned for a moment, then quickly opened her mouth to eat the dumplings. Wan, you eat, there are many more in the kitchen. If it's not enough, I'll steam them for you. That's enough, I'm just greedy. Suwan ate a vegetarian dish and said vaguely, the dumplings are hanging in the well and I'll let Gu Huizi cook them tomorrow morning. Gu's mother said, it tastes delicious when fried. Let Huizi fry another plate. You will definitely like it. Okay, Suwan's bad mood dissipated and she said happily, add another bowl of soy milk. I'm going to soak the beans now. Gu's mother excitedly went to the kitchen to take out the soybeans, soak them, and grind the soybean juice in the morning. Suwan took a bite of the dumpling, thinking about Gu Huizi's little mood. Carrying a plate of dumplings, her cheeks bulging with dumplings, she walked slowly to the door of the room and knocked on the door. The door opened automatically. Suwan poked her head in, and Gu Huizi sat on the bedside reading. She walked over and sat down next to Gu Huizi. He turned a page of the book with his slender fingers without moving an eyebrow. Gu Huizi, the dumplings are delicious. Eat one. Suwan held the dumpling and put it in his mouth. Gu Huizi's eyebrows skipped a beat, and he was about to push her hand away when Suwan tilted her head and leaned towards him, grinning at him. It's really delicious. She touched his arm with her elbow and urged. Hurry up, this is my first time feeding someone, my hands are sore. Gu Huizi sneered in his heart. When the prince was punished, she was the one who fed him bite by bite. I thought so in my heart, but I ate the dumplings with a straight face and an indifferent expression. Suwan ate one for herself and fed another to Gu Huizi. Gu Huizi stared at the dumplings for a long time and ate them in silence. 2 people, one for you and one for me, shared a plate of dumplings. Suwan asked, you're not angry anymore? Are we reconciled? Gu Huizi pursed his lips and said nothing. His eyes fell on the washed white clothes beside him, with a hole in the cuffs. Suwan understood instantly. Brother, I don't know how to sew. P.S., darlings, there is one more chapter, okay? Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Bao Bao. Chapter 89. Suwan dug a hole for herself. Gu Huizi has a small belly and chicken intestines. If he is angry, he will be angry. Why is she joining in the fun to coax people? Angry people age easily. Suwan pretended not to understand, pointed her finger at the end of his eyes, and touched the tiger's butt. You can see there are lines. The prince is 23 years old, 4 years older than you. Years old, your mother said he is about the same age as you. She gave you a careful look and rushed out with the plate before Gu Huizi got angry. Clang dash. Suwan closed the door, her heart beating fast. The room was quiet. The man was not angry. Suwan breathed a sigh of relief, took the bowl to the kitchen and washed it, went to Gu's mother's room to take out the sewing basket, and practiced with 2 rags. The stitching is very rough, not as fine as the original stitching. Suwan scratched the back of his head in distress. Would this expose him? No, she can sew up the patient's wounds, but how can she fix 2 rags? She was more motivated to remove seams than she was to practice suturing. After dinner, Suwan washed up and went to bed early. Gu Huizi lay beside her and fell asleep. Suwan opened her eyes in the darkness and made sure Gu Huizi was asleep. She climbed out of bed quietly, took out the gown from the wooden box, slipped out of the room and went to the miscellaneous room to sew it up stitch by stitch. Although the stitching is not delicate and unique, she tried her best and it is still pretty good. She remembered that the original owner sewed the crown for the prince, but instead embroidered a sea water picture. She would like to embroider bamboo, but unfortunately her ability does not allow it. With a sigh, Suwan folded her clothes, put them back in the box, climbed onto the bed and sat cross-legged on the inside, staring at Gu Huizi's peaceful sleeping face. The dim moonlight shone on his face, making his whole person become particularly soft. He poked the bridge of his nose with his finger. You have to save some time for me. I won't spoil you next time. Suwan took off the hairpin on her head and let her long, smooth hair spread all over her back. She said to her heart, I only indulge you for the sake of carving hairpins and making dumplings for me. She fell on the bed and fell asleep as soon as she touched the pillow. Gu Huizi slowly opened his eyes. The people around him moved, and Gu Huizi was very familiar with it. He pulled away his quilt. Suwan rolled over, hugged his waist, and pressed her cheek against his arm. Gu Huizi hesitated for a moment, stretched out his hand to pinch her index finger, and touched her fingertips. There were traces of the needles pressed for a long time. He lowered his eyes, stared at her peaceful sleeping face, and raised his hand to cover her with the quilt. Suwan kicked off the quilt in confusion. It's cold at night. Gu Huizi covered her again. Seeing that she was about to kick it off again, he put his palm on her head. Be obedient. Suwan seemed to be comforted and fell asleep peacefully. When she got up the next day, Suwan was dressed neatly and there was a basin of water brought by Gu Huizi on the wooden stand. She washed up and came out of the house. Gu Huizi came out of the kitchen with 2 bowls of steaming soy milk and placed them in front of Gu Beizu and Gu Jingyun respectively. When he heard the commotion, Gu Huizi glanced at her lightly, turned and went into the kitchen, and brought out 2 more bowls of soy milk. Suwan stared at the gown he was wearing. It was the one she had mended. Her mood was as bright as the sunshine outside, and she sat down with a bright smile. Second brother, third sister, good morning. It's late, the sun is shining on your butt. Gu Jingyun pushed the dumpling in front of Suwan. Sister-in-law, I don't need to go to the academy today, I will accompany you to find a house. Gu Beizu said crisply, I want to go too. Okay, let's go together. Suwan took a sip of the soy milk. Well, it was very sweet. Brother, let's go together. The 2 little guys blinked their big, pure eyes. Brother is the most powerful, he must know where there is a house for rent. Gu Huizi said lightly. Yeah. It's settled. The 2 little guys became excited. Suwan. Do you want to seek the opinions of the parties concerned? After breakfast, the group went to town. Gu Huizi glanced at Gu Jingyun. Gu Jingyun pulled Suwan's sleeve. Sister-in-law, I know where there is a house for rent, it's on Liwa Lane. Let's go to Liwa Lane first. Suwan touched his head, took Gu Beizu's hand, and went to Liwa Lane together. A rental notice is posted on the door of number 8 Liwa Lane. Suwan raised her hand and knocked on the door. An old man opened the door. He was wearing a cloth gown, with a stooped back and grey hair and beard. He was dressed like a gatekeeper. How many of you are here to see the house? The old man looked at Gu Huizi with cloudy eyes. Do you want to rent a house or buy a house? How do you sell your house? Gu Huizi asked. What's the price for the little boy? 50 taels. The old man's face like old tree bark twitched, as if he was speechless about the price. Suwan was also speechless. She went around to find out the price of the house. For this location, it cost at least 200 taels of silver. If Gu Hui spoke 50 taels, wouldn't he be beaten out? Okay, 50 taels is 50 taels, the old man reluctantly agreed. Suwan's head was full of questions. He is truly one who dares to speak and one who dares to sell. Her expression suddenly became strange. Little girl, the old man is not a liar. The old man sighed heavily. You are Dr. Su from Zinglan Medical Center, right? Master Chiener heard that you were looking for a house, so he gave an order. The first price you offered, no matter how much, I have to accept it. Suwan thought about it and said, what do you want, sir? Madam is suffering from a strange disease. She has been seeking medical advice for a year or two to no avail. This time I heard that there was a miracle doctor in Zitown, so I specially brought my wife to Zitown and was planning to find a time to visit. The old man stopped after clicking. Suwan realized that before anyone came to the door, she came to the door and promised her a favor so that she could do her best to diagnose the patient. I am a doctor, and it is my duty to treat patients. Just let him bring his wife to Zinglan Medical Center without giving me any benefits, Suwan said with a smile. Shall I take a look at the house first? Dr. Su, please come. The old man showed Suwan and his party the house. There is a wall shadow at the entrance of the house. There are flower gardens on the left and right sides. Go around the wall shadow and enter. There is a large courtyard in the middle. Facing the wall shadow is the main courtyard. There are east and west wing rooms on the left and right sides. Each wing room has wing rooms and miscellaneous rooms. Behind the main courtyard, there is a row of short terraced houses. The layout was very much in line with Suwan's wishes. How much money is your house worth? It's worth more than 200 taels. I'll sell it at a discount of 200 taels. If it's a lease, the minimum rent is 1 year, 15 taels of silver per year. I like your house. Suwan took out her money bag, took out 2 banknotes with a face value of 100, handed them to the old man and said, you accept them, I bought them. This. The old man's eyes drifted to Gu Huizi. This young man arranged for someone to buy the house in advance. Seeing his subtle nod, he accepted the banknote and said, okay, I'll charge you 200 taels. The old man wrote the deed and gave it to Suwan together with the land deed. The whole process went surprisingly smoothly. When Suwan got the land deed, it was like a dream. In this other world, she had her own house. Suddenly, Suwan had a wonderful sense of belonging. Dr. Su, please come over and hand over things tomorrow. I will move the things away today. The old man sent the group of people out the door. Okay, I'll come tomorrow morning. Suwan had to meet the deadline and couldn't delay too long. The old man responded. Suwan turned around, the door opposite opened and the prince came out. We meet on a narrow road. The prince saw Gu Huizi at a glance and looked down, fixed on Gu Jingyun's face. The author has something to say. Ouch, good night, babies, see you tomorrow. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Bao. Chapter 90. Gu Jingyun was wearing a royal blue gown, his hair was tied into a ponytail, his eyes were dark and bright, and he looked at him with a tight look on his face. The prince raised his eyebrows slightly. This face was very familiar and looked very similar to the queen's nephew. His eyes fell on Gu Beizu's face. The little girl was next to Suwan, looking at him curiously with her watery eyes. Gu Jingyun and she were twins, they were not alike. Awan, you buy a house here. The prince ignored Gu Huizi and chatted with Suwan. It was as if the unpleasant scene yesterday had never happened. Suwan was speechless. The prince lived across the street? What kind of fate is this? She subconsciously turned to look at Gu Huizi beside her. The man had a cold face and lowered his eyes as he wondered what he was thinking about. My heart skipped a beat. Huizi, I'm hungry and want to eat golden rice. Suwan made a quick decision, took Gu Huizi's arm, and said softly, I heard that there is a time-honored shop in the town, and the golden rice inside is quite famous. I want to try it. Gu Huizi stared at the soft and white hands on her arms, his eyes became deep, and his eyes fell on her beautiful face. The corners of her mouth were slightly raised, with an expectant look on her face, revealing the innocence and coquettishness of a girl. He raised the corners of his lips, the golden rice is cooked with chrysanthemums. You won't be able to get used to it. Suwan pouted and muttered, I just want to have a taste. Let's go. Gu Huizi pulled her hand away. Suwan's eyes widened. The next moment, Gu Huizi's generous and warm hand wrapped hers, and took a pair of younger siblings into the carriage. The prince stared at the two people's hands holding each other in a daze, they fit together like a perfect match. Gu Huizi stood on the shaft of the carriage, leaned forward slightly, and pulled her onto the carriage with force. Suwan was very close to him. The sunlight shone on his beautiful face, and his delicate facial features became vivid, making her heart sway. Gu Huizi. Suwan spoke subconsciously, staring at his graceful chin, I have nothing to do with him. Gu Huizi was silent and said warmly, I know. Suwan smiled brightly, let go of Gu Huizi's hand, and got into the carriage. Gu Huizi turned his head to look at the prince, squinting his eyes slightly, his eyes were sharp, not showing any gentleness as before. That kind of sharp aura, like a person with great power and a high position, is full of oppression. The prince was startled and had to look squarely at the young man in front of him. His body was thin and slender, and he had a sense of frailty that was about to end soon. This was due to the aura he had just released, which could not be ignored. He did not look like a poor farmer at all. A hint of sarcasm appeared on Gu Huizi's lips, the more things you want to catch, the more you will catch nothing in the end. It's quite a warning and advice. The prince's face suddenly darkened, and he stared at Gu Huizi's back gloomily, suddenly realizing that his back felt familiar. For a moment I couldn't remember where I had seen it. Your Highness, I need. The confidant made a gesture of wiping his neck. The prince watched the carriage drive out of the narrow alley, feeling uncertain. Suwan's actions just now had already explained everything. She would never look back and sincerely wanted to live with Gu Huizi. There was no trace of showmanship in her movements, expressions, and tone of voice when she acted coquettishly. When she clarified her relationship with Gu Huizi and gained his trust, the joy that jumped between her eyebrows came from her heart. Those clear eyes were no longer filled with him, but now filled with another man. No need, the prince said with serious eyes, check Gu Jingyun. Yes, the confidant took the order and prepared to set off to investigate. Check Gu Huizi again. The prince felt a little strange in his heart. He always felt that Gu Huizi was not simple. Yes, the confidant left in a hurry. The prince got on the carriage, and the chamberlain poured a cup of tea and handed it to the prince. "Your Highness, Miss Su is right. She is already married and has no possibility of being with you anymore. You gave up on her and chose power, so you should not look back and give others to others use it to criticize you." The prince remained silent, his eyes seemed to be dripping with thick ink, so dark that no light could shine through. General Qi had made a great contribution to the dragon back then. The late emperor gave him a blank imperial edict to commend him. It was a great favor from the emperor, allowing him to save his life at a critical moment. He used this edict as a dowry and gave it to his only daughter. Marquis Dingyuan's mansion. Marquis Dingyuan died suddenly, and the dowry fell into Marquis Dingyuan's hands without enough time to entrust her. When General Qi wanted to keep the dowry on his behalf, Miss Su was deceived by Marquis Dingyuan and became more and more separated from General Qi. The regent asked you to marry the crown princess because of this imperial edict. If you provoke Miss Su and break up with the crown princess, it will be a bit difficult to get this thing from her. The chamberlain's last words were a bit euphemistic. The prince did not blame him. The chamberlain was the only person his biological mother left to him, and he had the most trust. "I know this well." The prince felt bitter in his heart. In his position, he couldn't control many things. If he gave up his position as prince, he might not be able to protect Suwon. It was with this in mind that the queen changed the engagement between Suwon and Su Mingxiu. She turned a blind eye and did not interfere. Away from right and wrong, life is miserable, but life is there. After all, I was a little unwilling. "Have you found the whereabouts of Qi Jiajin?" The prince looked tired and pressed the bridge of his nose. "There are 3 purposes for this trip to Zitown. First, look for a miracle doctor. Second, Qi Jiajin. Third, visit Suwon." When the prince first arrived, he heard that the miracle doctor would not leave Zitown. He has not sent anyone yet. When he got the news from Qi Jiajin, he had the miracle doctor kidnapped. Qi Jiajin appeared at the dock of Zitown, but later lost his trace. The chamberlain's eyes flashed slightly, and he gave a suggestion: "Miss Su married to Zitown, and Qi Jiajin appeared here shortly after. We sent people to keep an eye on Miss Su. You can find Qi Jiajin." The prince fell silent. He was unwilling to take advantage of Suwon. "Let's talk again." The prince refused. The chamberlain lowered his head and did not persuade him again. The carriage stopped at the door of the inn. The Yicheng made a great gift and reported, "Your Highness, the Grand Administrator is here to visit you." No, the prince returned to the house. Su Mingxiu was waiting at the door with a curtain hat on her head and a food box in her hand. "Your Highness, I cooked the soup with my own hands, please have a taste." Su Mingxiu's tone was gentle, as if what happened 2 days ago had not happened. The prince didn't even look at her, and went inside to deal with the letters. Su Mingxiu's eyes turned red with anger, her finger bones holding the food box turned white, and a wave of anger burned in her chest. That day the prince left her place and went to Xinghua village to meet Suwon. She was about to write a letter to her mother, but she didn't expect that her mother had the foresight to send her a letter, telling her that there was an imperial edict in the Ho's mansion, which was exactly what the prince wanted. She no longer felt itchy today, so she came to see the prince and used the imperial edict as bait. Su Mingxiu calmed down and couldn't be impatient. If the prince wants an imperial edict, he will come to her sooner or later. Bang bang bang. There was a knock on the door of the prince's study. "Enter." The confidant opened the door and came in, knelt on the ground and reported, "Your Highness, my subordinates have found out the information about Gu Huizi and Gu Jingyun.